I'm sorry, he was saying, that I had to forestall for so long this pleasure of having you in my house, and to that extent at least I am glad there is no longer any question of my patronage between us. I puzzled at this a while. He had certainly been my patron in car until now. Did he mean that the audience he had arranged for me with the king tomorrow had raised me to an equality with himself? I don't think I follow you, I said. At that, he was silent, evidently also puzzled. Well, you understand, he said at last. Being here, you understand that I am no longer acting on your behalf with the king, of course. He spoke as if ashamed of me, not of himself. Clearly, clearly, there was a significance in his invitation and my acceptance of it which had I missed. But my blunder was in manners, his in morals. All I thought at first was that I had been right all along not to trust Straven. He was not merely adroit and not merely powerful, he was faithless. All these months in Ergeran it had been he who listened to me, who answered my questions, sent physicians and engineers to verify the alienness of my psyche and my ship, introduced me to people I needed to know, and gradually elevated me from my first year's status as a highly imaginative monster to my present recognition as the mysterious envoy about to be received by the king. Now, having got me up on that dangerous eminence, he suddenly and coolly announced he was withdrawing his support. You had led me to rely on you. It was ill done. Do you mean that, having arranged this audience, you haven't spoken in favor of my mission to the king as you? I had the sense to stop short of promised. I can't. I was very angry, but I met neither anger nor apology in him. Will you tell me why? After a while he said yes, and then paused again. During the pause I began to think that an inept and undefended alien should not demand reasons from the Prime Minister of a kingdom. Above all, when he does not and perhaps never will understand the foundations of power and the workings of government in that kingdom. No doubt this was all a matter of Shigreford, prestige, face, place, the private relationship, the untranslatable, latable, label, liable, and ill and all important principle of social authority in Karhait and all civilizations of Geden. And if it was I would not understand it. Did you hear that? Did you hear what the king said to me at the ceremony today? No. Straven leaned forward across the hearth, lifted the beer jug out of the hot ashes, and refilled my tankard. He said nothing more, so I amplified. The king didn't speak to you in my hearing, nor in mine, said he. I saw at last that I was missing another signal, damning his effeminate deviance. I said, "Are you trying to tell me, Lord Straven, that you are out of favor with the king?" He was angry then, but he said nothing that showed. Only, "I am not trying to tell you anything, Mr. A. By God, I wish you would." He looked at me curiously. "Well, then, put it this way. There are some persons in court who are, in your phrase, in favor with the king, but who do not favor your presence or your mission here. And so you are hurrying to join them, sending me out to save your skin. I thought there was no point in saying it. Straven was a courtier, a politician, and I a fool to have trusted him. Even in a bisexual society, the politician is very often something less than an integral man. He's inviting me he's inviting me to dinner showed that he thought I would accept his betrayal as easily as he committed. Clearly, face saving was more important than honesty, so I brought myself to say, I'm sorry that your kindness to me has made trouble for you. Coals of fire, I enjoyed a fleeting sense of moral superiority, but not for long. He was too incalculable. He sat back so that the firelight lay ruddy on his knees and his fine, strong, small hands and on the silver tankard he held. But he left his face in shadow, a dark face always shadowed by the thick, long, low-growing hair and heavy brows and lashes. A dark face always shadowed by the thick, low-growing hair and heavy brows and lashes, and by a somber blandness of expression. Can one read a cat's face as seals and others? Some Gardenians, I thought, are like such animals, with deep, bright eyes that do not change expression when you speak. I had made trouble for myself, he answered, by an act that had nothing to do with you, Mr. A. You know that Carhide and Orgorein have a dispute concerning a stretch of our border in the high North Fall near Sassinot. Argaven grandfather claimed the Sinot Valley for Carhide, and the commensals have never recognized the claim. I love the snow out of one cloud, and it grows thicker. I've been helping some Carhadish farmers who live in the valley to move back east across the old border, thinking the argument might settle itself if the valley were simply left to the Orgota, who have lived there for several thousand years. I was in the administration of the North Fall some years ago and got to know some of the farmers. I dislike the thought of their being killed in forays or sent to voluntary farms in Orgoren. Why not obviate the subject of dispute? But that's not a patriotic idea. In fact, it's a cowardly one, and impugns the chief Grethor of the king himself. His ironies and these ins and outs of a border dispute with Orgoren were of no interest to me. I returned to the matter that lay between us. Trust him, trust, trust him or not. I might still get some use out of him. I'm sorry, I said, but it seems a pity that this question of a few farmers may be allowed to spoil the chances of my mission with the king. There is more at stake than a few miles of national boundary. Yes, much more. But perhaps the ecumen, which is 100 light years from the border to border, will be patient with us a while. The stables of the ecumen are very patient men, sir. They will wait 100 years or 500 for Carhide and the rest of Gethen to deliberate and consider whether or not to join the rest of mankind. I speak merely out of personal hope and personal disappointment. I own that I thought that with your support I too. Well, the glaciers didn't freeze overnight. Cliché came ready to his lips, but his mind was elsewhere. He brooded. I imagined him moving me around with the other pawns in his power game. You came to my country, he said at last, at a strange time. Things are changing. We are taking a new turning. No, not so much. No, not so much that as following too far on the way we've been going. I thought that your presence, your mission, might prevent what are going wrong. Give us a new option entirely. But at the right moment, in the right place, it is all exceedingly changed, Mr. A. Impatient with his generalities, I said, "You imply that this isn't the right moment. Would you advise me to cancel my audience?" My gaffe was even worse in Carthage, but Straven did not smile or wince. "I am afraid only the king has that privilege," he said mild, mildly. "Oh God, yes, I did mean that." I put my head in my hands a moment. Brought up in the wide open, free-willing society of Earth, I would never master the protocol or the impassivity so valued by the Carhiders. I knew what a king was. Earth's own history is full of them, but I had no experiential feel for privilege, no tact. I picked up my tankard and drank a hot and violent, violent draught. Well, I will say less to the king than I intended to say when I could count on you. Good, way good, I demanded. Well, Mr. A, you are not insane. I am not insane. But, but then neither of us is a king, you see. I suppose that you intended to tell Argaven rationally that your mission here is to attempt to bring about an alliance between Geder and Eukemen. And rationally, he knows that already, because, as you know, I told him. I urged your case with him, tried to interest him in you. It was ill done, ill timed. I forgot, being to interest myself, that he is a king, and does not see things rationally, but as a king. All I told him, all, all I've told him means to him simply that his power is threatened. His kingdom is a dust mote in space. His kingship is a joke to men who rule 100 worlds. But the ecumen doesn't rule, it coordinates. Its power is precisely the power of its member states and worlds. In alliance with the ecumen, Karhide will become infi- infinitely, infinitely less threatened and more important than it's ever been. Straven did not answer for a while. He sat gazing at the fire, whose flames winked reflected from his tankard and from the broad, bright silver chain of office over his shoulders. The old house was silent around us. There had been a servant to attend our meal, but Carhiders, having no institutions of slavery or personal bondage, hired services, not people, and the servants had all gone off to their own homes by now. Such a man as Streban must have words about him somewhere, for assassination is a lively institution in Carhide, but I had seen no word, heard none. We were alone. I was alone with a stranger inside the walls of a dark place in a strange snow-changed city, in the heart of the ice age of an alien world. Everything I had said tonight and ever since I came to Winter suddenly appeared to me as both stupid and incredible. How could I expect this man or any other to believe my tales about other worlds, other races, a vague benevolent government somewhere off in outer space? It was all nonsense. It had appeared in Carhide in a queer kind of shape, and I differed physically from Genetians in some respects that wanted explaining, but my own explanations were preposterous. I did not, in that moment, believe them myself. I believe you, said the stranger, the alien along with me, and so strong had my access of self-alienation been that I looked up at him bewildered. I am afraid that Argaven also believes you, but he does not trust you, in part because he no longer trusts me. I have made mistakes, been careless. I cannot ask for your trust any longer. Either having put you in jeopardy, I forgot what a king is, forgot that the king is his own eyes is Carhide. I I forgot what a king is, forgot that the king is in his own eyes is Carhide, forgot that what patriotism is and that he is, of necessity, the perfect patriot. Let me ask you this, Mr. I. Do you know by your own experience what patriotism is?